Chapter 11. LO 11.6 has you perform financial analysis using the statement of cash flows. Analysts often supplement their investigation of the income statement and balance sheet with amounts with cash flow ratios. Some cash flow ratios are derived by substituting net cash flows from operating activities in the place of net income. They do not replace the ratios that use net income, but complement them. Substituting cash flows from operations in place of net income offers additional insight in the evaluation of a company's profitability and financial strength. So here's some selected financial data for Apple and Alphabet companies. We're going to re-examine financial ratios introduced in Chapter 7, return on assets, profit margin, and asset turnover, by substituting net cash flows from operating activities in place of net income. The first is we would calculate the return on assets. Remember, return on assets is net income divided by average total assets. So our return on assets for the two companies, you see Apple has 13.9% and Alphabet has 12.4%. We can then calculate a cash return on assets. We can gain additional insights by looking at the operating cash flows instead of net income. So operating cash flows divided by average total assets, we see the cash return on assets of Apple is 18.2, and the cash return on Alphabet is 22.9. We can then break up the cash return on assets into two additional components: cash flows to sales and asset turnover. Cash flows to sales measures the operating cash flow generated by each dollar of sales. Asset turnover, also covered in Chapter 7, measures the sales revenue generated per dollar of assets. Cash flow to sales and asset turnover represent two primary strategies that companies have for increasing their cash return on assets. So the cash flow to sales for Apple versus Alphabet. We're replacing net income with operating cash flows. So operating cash flows divided by net sales. We see Apple has 27.7% and Alphabet has 39.9%. Then our asset turnover for Apple and Alphabet. Net sales divided by average total assets. We see our asset turnover is 0.66 for Apple and 0.57 for Alphabet. Both companies have high cash flows to sales ratios, but Apple's is lower. This difference explains why Apple generates lower cash return on assets. However, this lower return is partially offset by their higher asset turnover ratio. So Apple uses its assets more efficiently to generate sales. To maximize cash flow from operations, a company strives to increase both cash flow per dollar of sales and sales per dollar of assets. And that is the end of Chapter 11.